Hey, we're live. This is Brita from the Firehose Project, and I'm here with Ken, our co-founder and CTO. And we're here to talk to you today about our program and the topic of the day, which is programming languages and which programming languages should you learn. So we're really excited to talk about this. We get a lot of questions, and definitely for people who are starting off with coding and learning to program, it's a big topic of interest, and it can be kind of a big hurdle to kind of figure out some of these things. So we're stoked to be here talking about it today. So we'll dive right in, and just before we start, if you have any questions, feel free to send them in the chat, and send them in early because we'll be able to have Ken answer some if you guys have some about programming languages specifically while he's here with us today. So one of the things that we get the most that we hear from students that I think people are really curious about is if you're looking to start kind of from scratch as a programmer, or maybe you have a little bit of experience, what language will give you the best foundation, and how can you choose a language that will kind of help you become a capable programmer and a competitive developer as you're out looking for a job? So what's kind of like the best place to start in terms of having a solid foundation there?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time doing a lot of research on the different programming languages that are out there and really trying to make sure that they get the right one. The one thing that I would say is don't spend too much time in analysis paralysis knowing that that you need to pick the perfect programming language. I think picking any programming language will start giving you the concepts that apply to all programming languages. If you think about sort of the things that apply to one programming language, things like object-oriented programming, inheritance, things like that, they exist in the Ruby programming language, they exist in Java, they exist in C++, so many different languages. So basically, once you pick up these higher level concepts, some of the syntax might be a little bit different. So basically, actually getting hands-on skill of writing code is one of the most important things. We at the Firehose Project teach the Ruby programming language, and we do for a couple of reasons. The first is I think the community of the Ruby community is just very welcoming and embraces people that are just breaking into it. Attending a first coding meetup can be a little bit intimidating, and knowing that the Ruby community is so welcoming to everybody, and there's pizza, and there's a lot of really good reasons that the community is just a fun place to be. So I think the community welcoming is really important. The Ruby programming language has proved that it sort of is here to stay. It's not a new fad. It's not the latest, greatest thing. It's something that industry has sort of accepted that yes, Ruby is gonna stick around. So basically that means that it's pretty easy to find answers to your programming questions on places like Stack Overflow and things like that, because basically any question that you have about the Ruby programming language, it's really easy to find. If you pick like super cutting edge programming languages like Rust or Elixir or some of these, they're cool languages, but it's a lot more difficult to find the answer. I think the Ruby programming language, the syntax of it makes it really, so the syntax, if you don't know, is sort of the technical letters that you type in. So it's like DEF space and then like whatever, and then an opening parenthesis and a closing one. And the syntax is sort of the actual language like features, and the syntax makes it really easy if you're thinking about breaking apart like complex algorithm problems. It just makes it really easy to sort of figure out how to focus on the problem that you're solving and think about solving it as a problem solver in an English-like language instead of this sort of difficult to understand and read things. So I think if you're looking to develop problem solving and algorithm skills, the Ruby programming language is one of the best places you can start, and it will give you a solid foundation. It's an object-oriented language, it has inheritance. All these are factors that other programming languages have too. So I think if you start with Ruby, it's a great place to start, but having said that, don't go into analysis paralysis. Pick one programming language and jump in, start learning it, and it doesn't really matter that much what you pick.
Cool. So kind of just piggybacking off of that and getting a little bit into our program as well. So we also teach JavaScript, and could you talk a little bit about like learning Ruby and then JavaScript and like why you might want to learn two languages as you're starting off?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's actually really important is in order to actually understand the skill at a like a deep technical level, having more than one language that you actually understand is actually pretty important. So the term for that's used in the community is being a polyglot programmer, which polyglot means you can speak different languages, many different languages. So you're not just sticking to one. There's different places where your code can execute. There's the server side, so basically up in the cloud in some place like far away, there can be programs running and sort of things happening to your web application. And there's also client side, which is kind of like inside the browser of your user where you want to have like an animation pop up or something like that. In order to do the things in the browser, you're usually going to want to use the JavaScript programming language because that's kind of the standard for all of web browsers. They kind of accept it. And since web browsers accept it, learning how to use JavaScript is super practical, and it's super practical in the real world too. So focusing on like Ruby on the server side and JavaScript on the client side or inside the browser is probably the right decision because it's using the right tool for the job, because in the browser it's pretty practical to use JavaScript, but using other alternatives in different environments can make sense too.
Cool, awesome. So that that helps a lot and kind of gives like a little bit of color as to like how to think about which languages to learn and also not to think about it too much. So I guess if you think like kind of thinking about that, like best tool for the job and stuff like that, like what, if you had to pick one programming language to learn, like what's the best option, and are all programming languages equal, or why not? I know you kind of mentioned, but there are a lot of new technologies that are coming out and kind of fad programming languages. So I guess how do you think you can like evaluate kind of the best tool for the job and make sure that as you're learning, you set yourself up for success there?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. The thought of, are all programming languages equal? And it's kind of a difficult one to answer because I feel like, yeah, part of me wants to say both things. And part of me wants to say in a lot of ways it is equal because it's programming languages allow you to break apart problems and think about things in sort of a step-by-step fashion. And in that sense, they all have similar properties. But on the flip side, I think that it's not fair to say that all programming languages are equal. Some programming languages have certain benefits over other programming languages in certain different environments. And like going back to what we were talking about before, thinking about the JavaScript programming language working inside web browsers. Well, JavaScript has a lot of things built into it that makes it more used, like it's built with the problem at hand. That's how they designed sort of the language. So I think there are some nuances of JavaScript that make it an excellent candidate for using inside client-side apps, and you don't need to. There's other languages you can use. You can use CoffeeScript. You can use a number of different sort of programming languages. You're not stuck to JavaScript anymore, but it's still the sort of go-to de facto default. So it's a practical tool to actually use in the client side. As far as the thinking about sort of where Ruby really shines in like being able to execute on the server side, I think the fact that it has a lot of tools and utilities. There's what are known as gems, which are like packages that basically you can have a lot of the problems that you're going to face solved automatically for you. So if you want to add a feature like user login, it sounds like it's a pretty big, working in Ruby on Rails, you can just include a gem, which is a package. This package will do most of the work for you, and then you can just customize the user sign-in. And the same can be said for many different things too. So the breadth of sort of these different packages in the Ruby community, the way that the Rails framework, so Rails is actually a web framework, so it's a little bit different than a programming language, but I think thinking about the frameworks in the context of the programming language makes a lot of sense too. And I think most Ruby developers program in the Rails framework, and the Rails framework makes it intuitive to learn some of these things. So they focus on things like convention over configuration, so always doing things the same way instead of having it be done different ways in different places and things like that. So I think those are some pretty solid reasons that I think that it makes a lot of sense to learn these programming languages. But I think not all languages are equal, but at the same time, at different places they shine in different ways. So you want to sort of make sure to use like the right tool for the job.
Cool, that's a good way to sum it up. So I have a question. maybe put you on the spot a little bit, but could you give an example of something that's built with Ruby and with JavaScript, and we could kind of see like what those might look like?
Yeah. So if we think about like projects that have been built with the Ruby programming language, one of the best examples is the founder of Ruby on Rails, the person who invented it, built the project Basecamp, which is a pretty cool project management tool. It's not necessarily the most flashy thing, but it's like a very useful tool that many businesses use to get the job done. The place where people all collaborate about code, regardless pretty much about what programming language you use, GitHub, that is built on top of the Ruby on Rails programming language too. So basically the center around sort of like this code collaboration stuff, that's built on Ruby on Rails too. And if you think about other consumer sites like Groupon and I think Shopify, I could be wrong about that one, but there's plenty of companies that actually use Ruby on Rails, and it's just because it's really good for solving certain problems. And JavaScript too. So JavaScript projects that people have potentially, or companies have built, if you look at like Product Hunt, they have a really like slick UI and they have a lot of JavaScript going on there too, as well as most companies that have a consumer web application are gonna have at least some level of JavaScript involved. Some places will use some of these like other like CoffeeScript or something like this that turn into JavaScript. It's called transpiling, but basically it's a process of rewriting code from one language into JavaScript, but in one shape or form. Basically any site that has any cool animations or changes without a full page refresh. Gmail is a perfect example of a pretty cool user interface that leverages a lot of JavaScript, as well as like Google Maps. Like you think about sort of like panning and scrolling the map and all that stuff. A lot of JavaScript's going on behind the scenes in those Google Maps. So those are some examples of the web applications in the real world.
Awesome. Well, that was great and so helpful. I know those are a lot of questions that we get from students as they're kind of thinking about getting into coding and whatnot. And so let's see, I think we may have a couple questions from some of the students or people that are interested in coding. So let's see if we can grab a couple of those questions live right now before you head out. So let's see, any questions up here that we can get to right now?
So does Ruby help solve complex data structure and algorithm problems? So great question. I think before we answer the question, maybe it makes sense for us to zoom out a little bit and walk through what those actually mean. So the word data structures means the various facets of a programming language that allow you to do things, so the different data types and things like that. And using a programming language, you get a lot of stuff built in for free. You get things like numbers, and like if you have a bunch of letters, it's called strings. And if you have, there's many different types of things. There's arrays, so lists of things, and there's hashes, which is like a mapping of a left side to a right side. These, what we're talking about now, are all data structures. So basically, a lot of these things are built into the Ruby programming and any programming language, so you sort of get it for free. As far as the actual data structures, you can also implement some yourself. So Ruby might give you an array class, but there's nothing stopping you from writing Ruby code to build your own type of an array. And you can use things called like linked lists to do things like that. And there's also other data structures like trees and things like that that allow you to solve complex problems. I think we wrote a blog post about how you can use a tree to sort some a various list and things like that. So as far as that, and then at the algorithm side of things, when you think about building an algorithm or like writing software, building an algorithm is all about breaking things into step by step by step sort of like facets. So it's basically unambiguous, and it sort of tells you exactly what the computer needs to execute. So Ruby will allow you to build some of these data types, which is pretty cool, as well as solve some of these algorithm problems. You can do it in other programming languages too, but the way that the Ruby programming language is designed, it makes it pretty easy to jump in and start solving more complex problems, because you don't have a lot of baggage about sort of confusing lines of code and having to like balance out a lot of like curly braces and things like that. So you can do it in any programming languages. There's not necessarily a right answer, but Ruby will help you out quite a bit if you want to learn some of that stuff.
Question. Let's see if we have time for a couple more. over here. So let's see.
Marcel's comment is pretty funny.
Yeah. Sorry, we're looking through all the comments. Yeah, Marcel, that's a great comment. Okay, so let's see. So we have so while Ken's here, we want to just answer any that are kind of about the programming languages, but I think this kind of, I see another question that was kind of similar. Are there any drawbacks of Ruby on Rails, or can you think of anything that that might be a drawback of using or learning Ruby on Rails?
That's a pretty tough question. So I really like it. So like, I feel like it's like asking somebody whose favorite like NBA player is Scottie Pippen or something. What are the flaws of Scottie Pippen? And as sort of like a fan, it's a little bit hard to think about specific things. I think things that other people give it. So basically, there's a number of things that people like flaws that people point out, and I think they're not necessarily warranted. So here's a couple that people will say. So one is that it's not fast. So that's one that you're going to get quite a bit. Ruby not being fast is just one of the most common complaints. It's one of the reasons why people didn't think it would take off. And it turns out that it's fast enough, which is basically the kind of answer that Ruby had. So a lot of optimization has gone into making Ruby as fast as it currently is. So it's much faster than its initial implementation, but it's still pretty slow, especially when comparing it with low-level languages like Java or C++ or C or even assembly. So you can get stuff to go a lot faster, but it's going to take you a lot longer to write. So there's sort of the trade-off there. So are you saving execution time in sort of like the execution of the program sense? Absolutely, but at the expense of having things take a lot longer to build. So Ruby makes things easy to build, a little bit slower to run, but it's not slow enough where it's actually that much of a problem. If you're running major types of things that need to be super, super fast, there's these things called native extensions. So inside Ruby, you can write a little bit of C code that you can sort of optimize really fast to be sort of super efficient. So Ruby's efficiency is one of the common complaints. As far as other drawbacks that it has, I'm trying to think. Efficiency is a big one that people point out, and I think like one other one is if you didn't like Rails, the web framework Rails, it's sort of the dominant web framework. So if you happen to not like the decisions that DHH, the creator of Rails, had, so he thinks about things like convention over configuration. So basically do it all the same way instead of making it different. And other types of things like that. If you want more explicit configuration and all of that stuff, well, the Ruby community is going to be gravitating mostly towards this Rails framework. And if you don't like the Rails framework, which some people don't, the Ruby community is going to feel like you don't really have a home as far as like what tools you actually use. Personally, I love the decisions that Rails has. I think Ruby is plenty fast enough to sort of get the problems done, and it's used in industry all the time. It's like proven it has a track record. So there's a couple of things that I think people generally say about the drawbacks of the Ruby programming language, but overall, I don't think that they're necessarily all that important. So I think there's no language is perfect, but I think Ruby is pretty awesome. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Cool. Well, I think we may be out of time to go into more about programming languages right now, because we want to also talk a little bit about our program and what we do with the programming languages that we're teaching. But thank you so much, Ken, for joining and for sharing some of that. I think that hopefully was super helpful. I know we definitely get questions about that all the time. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And thanks for the awesome questions, too.
Cool. So we will dive into kind of the rest of the info session about our Firehose project program and the full course here. So Ken obviously just chatted a bunch about programming languages, which are the best to learn, and also kind of not having that paralysis analysis of not getting started because you can't figure out the perfect programming language or exactly what's going to be the best option. The best thing to do is to just get started and get coding and start creating things and getting that experience, and then learning what the best tool is for the job as you go, because that definitely takes some time. So looking into this, if you're joining this info session or watching and interested in learning about programming languages, probably thinking about getting into programming and interested in that. And so let's kind of look at like why coding and programming is important and relevant, and why to it as a career or a passion. So there's a saying that software is eating the world, and that's been pretty debated, and people are always kind of talking about that, and is it true? Is that really happening? And I think definitely it's more true than ever. So if you look at maybe even the past 5 years, 10 years of technologies that have evolved, programming and software development and web development has really been at the core of that. And we've come so far with what we've innovated and created over the past 5 or 10 years. And looking forward in the next 5 or 10 years, that is only going to be amplified. And programming and software development is going to continue to be at the core of that. So if you look at things like Tesla and other projects that are working on self-driving cars, autonomous cars, and you look at SpaceX and all of these other projects, they all involve code, and they all have programmers that are writing code for that and working on those projects at their core. And then you've also got companies that, and industries that maybe are less, that are more traditional and are thought of as a little bit not quite on that cutting edge of innovation, and they're also looking to automate things and to catch up. And so, companies like that are also looking for ways to make, have more efficiency and automate their processes and stuff like that. And that's where software development is going to play a huge role as well. So, the job market for this and the demand for these skills is huge right now, and it's only growing. Most places are like struggling to find talent to fill these roles for this growing industry, because it does really cross a variety of industries having these skills. So that's kind of looking at it from like a skill demand and job career perspective. But looking at it on a personal level, software development is a really fulfilling career. And so when you're working as a developer, you're using code to solve problems. And so you're looking at puzzles and using critical thinking and addressing challenges and problems with code. And I think it's a lot more actually of a creative job and a creative role than many people may think. So you're writing and you're creating things and programs that are outputting things that weren't there before. And so you're looking at a problem and breaking it down and addressing that and really putting something out there. So people who like puzzles and problem solving and critical thinking and logic and stuff like that really end up loving programming, because it involves a lot of that type of thought process and day-to-day work, which is really exciting, because the day-to-day work is kind of always different as you're building on these projects that you're working on. And so it's always really cool to see, coding is so creative. There's so many different things you can do with it. So it's super cool to see the things that our students are doing with it, both in the full program and once they graduate. We've had students create really awesome apps and websites that have helped people in hospitals and created their own businesses, and apps recently that have been featured on like Newsweek and have gotten really popular. So it's super fun to check those out and just see the types of things that our students are creating. So that's kind of why people are interested in coding, why it's an awesome career choice for some people. If that sounds like, that's something that's interested to you, the next kind of logical step is, how do I get those skills, and how do I get to the point where I can develop a career in that? And so there are a lot of different ways. So, there's obviously the more traditional kind of computer science degree. And then a lot of programmers now are actually learning from boot camps. And so we are obviously an online coding boot camp. Talk a little bit about what it's like to code online and what you can expect from that, and what you should be kind of looking for in programs, and how to make sure that you're actually going to be job ready at the end of a coding boot camp. So talking about our program, and I guess to back up a little bit, to kind of give the bit of history about how the Firehose project got started. So we actually started off by teaching in-person courses. So Ken, who is just here with us, and Marco, our co-founders, both have a background in education and started doing intensive boot camps at a bunch of different universities. So you're teaching at Harvard, Brown, Babson, Carnegie Mellon, and really got a really quick feedback loop on how students learn best and how we can explain these concepts and how to provide the right information at the right time. And because what we were seeing is we'd be able to pick up on when students were getting stuck and what things weren't quite making sense, and then how to address that. So when we developed an online course, we were able to kind of take all of those learnings and translate it into an online program that is a bit smarter than teaching in person in a classroom. So we can see everybody's progress throughout the course, and we can say, when you get to this point and you are working on this challenge, you should take a look at this overview video, because it's going to kind of tie everything together and it's going to start making a lot of sense for you. So ultimately, we're providing the right content at the right time, and it's much more of a smarter kind of teaching and learning platform. And that's what really helps things click for our students. And so hopefully some of you have started the free bootcamp prep course. If you haven't already, you can sign up on our website. But hopefully you'll start to see kind of how things are explained and how things click and how we can kind of do that, even with some of our free lessons in that prep course. So that's kind of how we got started, and now obviously have this online coding bootcamp. And so let's kind of talk about that. Like, what is it like to learn online? I think that's something that people are pretty unsure of if you've never done online education. So there's actually a lot of benefits of learning online. So like I was mentioning, that kind of old school like lecture type where you've got one teacher or one instructor and a bunch of students, or maybe you've got a TA or something. It doesn't really tailor the education and the learning style and speed, and definitely not scheduled to all the students in the course. So, as a student, you are limited by the pace, the speed of the course. So if you're picking up things really fast, you're going to be kind of getting bored, and you're going to be held back by, the pace of the course. Whereas also if you're struggling with something and you're needing help, there's kind of only so much that you can really get from one instructor that's trying to help out the whole class. So if you're looking at an online coding bootcamp, ours is self-paced, so you're able to go through the lessons at your own speed. We're never going to hold you back, and we're always going to have support there if you're needing help. And so we're able to kind of see how you're progressing through the course and work with you to make sure that you are challenged and understanding things, and just moving along and doing a really awesome job and having a great experience and making sure that those principles and lessons are really clicking for you. So you can move at your own pace, and then we're providing the right content at the right time. So we can see as you're solving challenges and working on certain lessons, when it's going to make sense to introduce new concepts, or when it's going to make sense to have an overview, or give you a new challenge or something like that. And then of course, because it's online, you can work on your own pace. So we have students all over the US and all over the world, various time zones, various schedules, whether you're working full-time, part-time, have mornings, evenings to code, so it can accommodate that. And that's something that traditionally has not allowed a variety of students to participate in this, because it's demanded that you kind of shift your schedule or drop your job or whatever, it's just that you can learn this. So it has a much more flexible schedule. You can code on your own time. You can, get support from our team and from our ambassadors when you need it. We'll definitely talk more about that later as well. And then you can also connect with this diverse community. So we do have students all over the world and all over the country, and we build out that community a lot on our platform. And so we have students from a huge variety of backgrounds, and we think that that really enhances our community, and it helps share perspective. And as you're working on the team project, you get all these different backgrounds and skills and perspectives that really add to that. So we have students that are stay-at-home parents. We have students that work in more admin roles, in IT tech. We also do have students that are have some development experience and are looking to learn new languages or brush up, or want to kind of learn how to have new skills or work more on CS fundamentals. And then we also have students that are put in through our program by their employers. So we have students from Google and Adobe, and a bunch of other companies that are learning to code with us as well. So as a Firehose student, you get to connect and code with all of those different types of backgrounds, which is a really unique experience, and really kind of adds to, it's a huge part of our Firehose community. As you're coding online, I think a lot of people are nervous that they're going to be coding alone, or they're going to be getting stuck and not have the help. And that's something that we've definitely built a ton of support into our program. So first off, our program is mentor-based, so every student does have a mentor, and you do have one-on-one mentor sessions regularly. And so our mentors are all full-time programmers. Most of them are senior developers or dev team leads at various companies. So we have PayPal, a bunch of different companies. And so these, our mentors all have years of experience with coding. They're great programmers. And then they also work with us, and we make sure that they're going to be really great at working with students as well. So explaining things and breaking things down and keeping you challenged. We work with the mentors to match with students, and so you'll get the great benefit as you're learning how to program of working with a senior developer. And so that includes like pair programming with them and working through challenges in the platform that we're giving you, and working on the apps and having them give you code review. And that's a really unique benefit, to be able to work side by side with a senior developer as you're learning. So that's your kind of regular mentorship, and they also provide a lot of kind of industry insight and really make sure that they're helping you level up to a place where they would want to hire someone on their team. So they have a great perspective and kind of industry insight that they can share and help you develop your learning and your career as well. And then we also have a forum at the bottom of each lesson, and this is a great way to get technical help during the full program. You'll actually see it in the bootcamp prep course as well. So it's at the bottom of each lesson. You can ask questions. It's a great method to ask that, because you can take screenshots or copy and paste in your code, and we can take a look at what you're actually working on and help you out. So you're never going to be stuck. We never want you to leave you hanging if you've got a typo and you've been working on your code for a while and you just can't quite figure it out. That's what the forum is there for. Or if you're stuck and you can't figure out a certain way to run a program, or having trouble getting set up, we have our Firehose team and ambassadors keeping an eye on that, getting you pretty quick answers so that you're never stuck with your wheels spinning. And that's a really great way to get that technical help as you're sitting and going through lessons and coding with us, in the day-to-day. So another thing is we also do have code reviews. So as you're learning to code, you're going to be getting code reviews. You'll be working with your mentor on that, but you're also going to be getting code reviews on all of the apps that you're building out. So we're constantly working with you to see, how you can improve your code, so refactor it to be more efficient, or improve different lines, or make something work that's not running quite properly. So you're going to constantly be getting feedback from engineers as well. As you're learning, and that's a huge part of what helps students improve. Again, in the free bootcamp prep course, we have you do a few Ruby challenges as well, and you'll be getting feedback on that too. So you'll start to see how that works and how beneficial that is when you're submitting code and getting feedback, and that's how it works on a dev team as well. We also do have weekly office hours, so Ken and Marco host those, and it's basically like a virtual hangout, and students can dial in, ask your questions, hear other students' questions, put faces to names, all of that, and just kind of hear about other students' experiences and what they're working on and what their challenges are. So that's a great time to connect with the community, meet other students, and ask your questions as well. We always record that and send it out to students. If you ever can't make it, you can still take a look and take advantage of that. And then on top of that, we have a Firehose Slack channel, and that's where there's constantly just a lot of chatter going on in there. And so you'll be able to find other students and alumni and the Firehose team in there as well. And you'll be able to see who is working on each lesson in the platform, and I'll show you that shortly. You'll be able to see who's kind of working on each lesson and find them in Slack, so you can always find your classmates and chat with them too. And then in the last bit of the program, which we'll talk about in a bit, you'll also be working on a team project. And so you're going to be working more closely with a smaller group of students as you build out a larger project. And so you'll be doing that kind of under the wing of a Firehose mentor who will act as your team lead. And so you're going to be getting a lot of support and a lot of feedback during that process as well. And we'll talk a lot more about that in a few minutes, because that's a huge part of our program too. So into the full program. So what does it look like? What is included in our curriculum? What will you be working on? How do we teach? So we start off with the bootcamp prep course, and it's free, and it is about maybe 20 hours of coding. It kind of is going to vary by, if you have a little bit of experience or not, but it's definitely an intro level prep course. And so we're going to be teaching HTML and CSS, and you're going to start off right off the bat writing some Ruby programs as well. And so during that prep course, we're going to be helping you out in the forum if you have questions, if you're getting stuck. We're going to be reviewing your code, giving you feedback on how you could refactor it to make it more efficient and effective. And so you'll be already practicing a bunch in that. And then once you complete that, and we'll have a couple coding challenges that you'll need to complete, and then we'll give you the thumbs up, and we can accept you into our full program as well. So you can continue learning with us and building out even cooler apps. And then the full program, so you'll dive right in and you'll start building apps. And the way that we teach is, it's definitely a very kind of teach you how to fish mentality, and it's a very hands-on learn by doing. So you're going to be learning these skills and how to write code and work with computer science fundamentals and working with algorithms and data structures. And as you're learning those skills, you're going to be learning them and tying them all into projects that you're building out. And so in just a few minutes, I'm going to kind of show you what our platform looks like and some example projects that students build out in the program. But we very much teach by having you do it. And so you're going to get that hands-on experience. And then, of course, you're going to graduate with a portfolio of projects that you've worked on, which is key and really awesome. And so you'll start building out real web applications from day one. And basically, we start and we're teaching you how to do it, and we're kind of guiding you along the way and showing you how it all works. And then we're kind of slowly removing the training wheels. And then slowly you're doing more and more of it, and you're learning how to take it, the whole process from end to end, and how to host it online by yourself, and all of that. And so we teach that kind of through that hands-on repetition. And it's really all designed to simulate those real-world experiences that get you the ability to code like that on a team and make your own career out of that. So let's take a look now at our platform and see what these lessons look like. So let's see, I'll pull that up so I can share it with you. And we'll take a look at some of the lessons and what all of these features look like, and then we can take a look at some of the apps that students have built as well. Okay, so this is our platform online. So this is what the dashboard looks like as you're signed into your account and you're coding with us. So you'll see a couple of things. So we have a progress bar up here. I haven't completed very much. I've been slacking. But you'll be able to see kind of how you're doing. And the way that we do that is we do give you weekly goals. So you can go in here and check these all off as you're working on it. So you'll be able to check off these lessons. And that really helps students kind of keep themselves on track and hold themselves accountable as you're going through the program. And so you'll be able to see down here kind of all the different projects and apps that we work on. So this is the bootcamp prep course. And so you'll be learning, like I said, HTML, CSS, and Ruby. And then we have, an online quotes generator. So this is the first program that you'll be working on. It's a database-powered quotes generator. We'll take a look at a student example of that. And we have, a video streaming platform. You can see all the different types of things that you'll be working on here. So this one does use JavaScript and algorithms. Let's take a look at this one, at some of these lessons. So this is building out a Yelp clone. And so you're going to be working on, using APIs, so like for Google Maps, stuff like that. So let's take a look here. And we'll see what some of these lessons look like. So we're starting you off here at the very beginning. We always use the most up-to-date technologies, so we actually have our students upgrade to Rails 5. So that's what this lesson is, getting started right off the bat. And let's take a look at some of these. So if we're taking a look at, for example, adding a Google Maps. So these are some lessons where you'll be adding, working with APIs and using a Google Map. So if you think of Yelp and how you can look at locations on a map, that's what we're doing here. And so as I mentioned, you can see which classmates are on this track, and you can find them in Slack. So you can always be chatting with classmates that are kind of coding alongside you in the program. And so you've got the lesson overview, and then we're kind of going over, all of these, all of the instructions here. And so we do have a text-based curriculum, because this is how it works on a dev team and in the real world. So you're getting instructions on how to use APIs and how to work with on new projects, and it's going to be all text-based. And so we want you to get used to that, because that's how programmers do it. And so a lot of our curriculum is text-based, but we do have a lot of videos and other formats for kind of larger concepts. So for example, if you go into this section where in this track, we've got videos for object-oriented programming. So if you take a look at these are going to be all these videos that are available that are going to help you kind of tie all these pieces that you're learning together. So at various points in the curriculum, we're going to say, okay, now that you've gotten to this point, why don't you go take a look at this video on initializing a class, because that's going to help you with the next steps. So you can take a look at some of these videos. We have awesome videos that are going over all of these concepts and really helping students grasp them and just do a really awesome job at kind of building out their apps and learning online with us. So that's kind of what a lesson looks like there, and all the different types of things that you'll have to work on in the project. So let's take a look at a couple example apps of things that students have built. So this is called Mere Words. And so this is one of the database powered quotes generators that our student built in the first week of the program. So I believe Justin built this out. Justin loves the outdoors, and so he wanted his quotes to all be by the naturalist John Muir. And so this is a composition of all of these John Muir quotes. And so you can check out some more quotes and get some inspiration to get outdoors. And so it's lagging a little bit because I've had this window open. But you can click here and get all these beautiful photos and John Muir quotes. And so the things that Justin worked on here, obviously this cool design and tying together all the front end. And then you've also got the ability to input user data. So it takes user data, it stores it in a database, and then generates it out to the UI. You can also have, he's got kind of some various features here. I believe you can user sign-in, stuff like that. So that's in the first week of the program. This is another app. So this is more of like a Yelp clone. And this is one that our student built. He loves climbing, as you can see. So he wanted to build a website that compiles all of the best climbing sites that people have been to. So you can share beta if you're a climber, that's the term. And so you can see he's got all these different locations here. So this one's a bouldering site in Texas. He's got a comment here, 5 stars, this place is amazing. Bishop, California. I was there a couple weeks ago climbing. It was really fun. I can definitely back up that that's a 5-star location. And so here you've got some location-based, you've got user commenting, you've got rating systems, you're able to sign in. So this is like a user sign-in feature. You can get email notifications. So these are all things that this student was learning how to build into the program. And features that, if you think of websites that you commonly use, you've got user sign-in, you've got commenting. So we're teaching you how to build out all of those types of features, and you can create a great website to display that. So here's another one. This is a course hub. And so this is basically selling courses online. So this student loves, Matt, he loves photography. So this is a website that's teaching photography skills. So you can purchase a course, you can see, all these different things that are offered here. He's tagging them. also has, you know, some of these features as well. So he's selling lessons there. And so you can see here, he's got like a payment platform description. You can kind of click in, see all the different courses here. So that was a great app as well. And then this is one of the group projects that was built out. So in the group project, which I'll get into shortly, you'll also build out a chess app. And the reason why we pick a chess app is because, or a chess game, is because it's a pretty complicated app to build out. So as you're building that out, you're thinking about really complex logic, like how each piece moves on the board, moving on black and white squares, how to test for checkmate. So you're writing in a lot of tests into your code. So this is one of our team's projects, and this site that they built is really to highlight their code so that they can talk to employers about this and they can show off their code. So they've got little snippets in here and kind of explain how they built things, and so it's really a great piece to add to your portfolio. And you can kind of highlight how you did that all as a group. And so getting into the Agile team project, so like I was saying, this is something you'll be working with, you know, 3 or 4 other students, and this is a huge part of what gets our students jobs, is because not only are employers looking for technically skilled candidates, but they're looking for someone that's going to join their team, because all of the best products are built by teams. So they are looking for someone that has experience communicating with a team and taking a large objective and project and breaking it down into smaller kind of actionable items, and how to coordinate a sprint cycle. So how to coordinate, you know, when you're going to be working on your piece of the project and then merging that with everybody's code and launching that, and then using all the communication tools as well. So you'll learn how to work on a remote team and using all the same tools that development teams use in the real world. And that gives you that real world experience that you can then, you know, go and jump right into a dev team and really hit the ground running. And you can talk about your experience in the interview and really demonstrate that to a potential employer. So it really allows you to be a high impact employee from day one. So let's take a look at some of the lessons back here again. So we'll go back here and one moment. So yeah, so you'll have this Agile team project here, and so you'll learn how to basically work just like software developers do. And so this is going to be running you through that. You'll have regular meetings with your team, and it's going to be led by a software engineer that's a Firehose mentor. So in addition to all of this, we also have our job preparation tracks. So we teach you computer science fundamentals, how to build out these great features, and we give you that experience of working on a team. And then we also are giving you a ton of job preparation as well. So let's take a look at this and get a little sneak peek of kind of what this is, what this involves. So we built out the job prep lessons with a ton of feedback from recruiters and hiring managers, and really got some good info on what they're looking for in candidates and what makes a candidate competitive and compelling to them. So we start at the very beginning of like how to structure your job search and what to expect. So a lot of our students are looking to start a technical role for the first time. They're looking to switch careers. We do have students also that do come from a technical background and are looking to learn something new. So we have that variety, but we give you all of the information that you need to know about what this is going to entail. And so we work on how to structure your resume and your cover letter and how to really highlight your projects and your experience that you have so far. Building out your developer brand, and then a big part of it is what happens in a technical interview. So technical interviews are a bit different than if you're looking for a non-technical role, like maybe a sales or a business or a project management position. And so that can be a bit intimidating to people at first. And so we really break it down and explain what that's going to involve and what you need to know about that. So we can take a look at this a little bit and kind of take a look at some of these lessons. So all of these lessons have really tangible, kind of actionable items. And let's take a look at some. So let's take a look at interview best practices. And let's see, actually, let's take a look at, yeah, let's take a look at some interview don'ts. So we'll give you a sneak peek here of some interview don'ts. So this is something too that we go through. And so we're talking about, you know, really how to like go through the interview and be prepared, and you know how to kind of navigate that whole thing. And so one of the things, like in another lesson that we talk about, is how to speak to your experience and what you've learned so far. And you know, don't say that you're, for example, an aspiring developer. Let's talk about how you are a developer and you have created these apps, and really focus on that versus I'm an aspiring developer, because nobody wants to hire an aspiring developer. They want to hire developers. And so we talk about a lot of those kind of soft skills as well, in addition to really going through tangible things like you know, structuring your resume and how to highlight those projects. So that is a huge factor and a huge help for our students in getting jobs. And this will be available more towards the end of the program, and so you can spend some of your time working on these job preparation lessons as well. And I think it's also important to note that you do, as a Firehose student, you will have lifetime access to all of the current curriculum. So all of the lessons, you know, as you're learning how to code, all the job prep lessons while you're in the program, you will have lifetime access. So it acts as kind of this giant resource for you as you're continuing your career. And then once you do graduate the full program, we also have advanced courses. And so this is almost like our Firehose graduate program. And these are things that we're constantly adding curriculum here. And so you'll see these lessons here. We have things like ES6, working with APIs, React, SQL. So we're constantly adding curriculum there. And these are something that's relatively new, actually. We're really excited. We launched it recently, and we've already had a bunch of students going through these lessons and had amazing feedback. So these are students that have graduated from the Firehose project and are already working in their first jobs as a developer. Also a great resource as you're looking for a job so that you can keep learning and be competitive. And basically the best programmers never stop learning. And we want to give you a tool to do that and to really be the best programmer that you can. Cool, so we can go back. I hope that was helpful to get a little preview of the program. So we'll go back and kind of just to sum it up now, going back into an overview kind of the program and everything that you know kind of is included with the Firehose project, and so why we are different, or kind of what sets Firehose project apart. So I think a huge one is the depth of our curriculum. We're teaching computer science fundamentals, algorithms, working with data structures, object-oriented programming. As Ken was mentioning with the programming languages, those are things that really transfer across boundaries of programming languages. So learning those fundamentals is key, because that's what gives you the platform and the foundation to continue learning and to learn other languages as well. So we have a really big focus on that while teaching Ruby on Rails and JavaScript, and having you really build out all of these applications on your own as well, and graduating with a really solid portfolio. Another thing, our Agile team project, that is a huge part of what really gets you the experience that takes you from learning to code and kind of going through lessons to coding on a team and being self-sufficient, because you're working through that whole workflow end to end, communicating with a team of other developers, and really coordinating to push towards that that project goal together. And that's how dev teams work in the real world. So again, really simulating that kind of real world experience and development experience. And then also our coordinated support. So you are always having access to help, whether it's on our Slack channel, our forum. You've got your regular meetings with an expert programmer, so a developer who you can pair program with as you're learning how to code, and really leverage their expertise and their industry insight. So that's huge. And then the Firehose team is always here. We've got the office hours. We're helping you out with code reviews. We're answering questions in the forum. So you're always getting help there and really helping to kind of level up and get feedback, and always with a focus on improving your skills as a programmer. And then our community is so awesome. We have amazing students constantly, you know, helping each other out and sharing ideas and sharing blog posts and stuff like that. So we've got this great Firehose community that as a Firehose student, you have lifetime access to that community. So we are constantly inspired by what our students are doing after the program, and we've got them, you know, helping out current students and chatting and sharing advice and stuff like that. So that's a really, really awesome thing that that we're super proud of and just super excited to be a part of. And so if you are interested in this, if you haven't already, check out our free bootcamp prep course. Like I said, you'll dive right in, you'll start doing some Ruby programs, we'll help you out in the forum if you get stuck, and we're gonna review your code, give you feedback, and then once you complete a few Ruby challenges, we give you the thumbs up on that, we can officially accept you into our full program. We start students every Monday, so if you're rearing to go, you never have to wait too long. And yeah, we love guys coding with us and checking out the free bootcamp prep course if you haven't already. So with that, I think we'll see if we have some questions. I know, I think Marco is helping out with a bunch of questions. I think hopefully he's been able to answer a bunch of those for you all. If you have any other questions, you can definitely feel free to email them into questions@thefirehoseproject.com. And we'll get right back to you. We'll also go through and make sure that we're able to answer everybody's questions that commented in on the chat. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. questions@thefirehoseproject.com. You can join our free bootcamp prep course. You'll get an email from me kind of saying hey and seeing if you have any other questions, and just really excited to get you started. So thank you everybody for joining today. I hope it was helpful learning a bit more from Ken about programming languages, and love chatting about the program. Would love to see you coding with us. So definitely drop a line if you have any questions or just want to say hi, and we'd love to hear from you. Have a good night.